So here's one possibility. This is not a perfectly symmetrical curve, is it? It's damn close. But I would not call this skewed. See, the thing about calling something skewed is that it's a sliding scale. 0 is perfectly symmetrical. 2 and 3 are very skewed. But somewhere between that is where lots of things live, and then you have to make a call as a statistician, is that too skewed to be worrisome? And that's the stuff we're going to be learning in this class together, is how worried should I be about these things. It's not skewed, but I'm going to call that a bell curve. Looks damn close. Looks like it has the right average and median. Sure does. I mean, 70 and 78 are both in this bar somewhere. You got to realize too, friends, that these are based off the raw data that I had, not based off the history I'm about to show you. So this is perfectly legitimate. So some of you guys drew something similar. Who drew something kind of deviant from this one? A different shape. Aaron, what'd you draw? Give me numbers.
It was all basically the same, except I didn't pass 70 to 80 was closer to 15.
Oh, okay, so a wider squatter curve.
Yeah, and 80 to 90 was also closer to 15.
Okay, good. So a little more, something like this maybe?
Yeah.
Along these lines, with like a tail off on this side? Ish. I like that. So a little more skew, a little more lean to the right, a little more skew to the left. Like it very much. I would call that a bimodal distribution, because if you think about it, I put both those bars, those top bars at the same height. Now you've got two modes, don't you?
Well, yeah, closer doesn't mean...
Closer doesn't mean the same. I read it as the same, I apologize. But yeah, it doesn't have to be exactly the same. These would be bimodal because they have the exact same number in B and C. Very good. Kevin, what you got?
Mine was kind of curved the other way.
Oh, look at you.
Exactly, because the median is higher than the average.
Nice.
There would be a higher frequency of people that did really well, 90s and 100s.
I like that. Median. Did it by any chance look like that?
Pretty close.
Because that is what the grades actually look like. Nice, Kevin. Nobody's ever even come close to that before.
Mine had more on the 90s.
More on the 90s than the low end.
Mine was...
Good for you. Good for you, dude. Absolutely. This is what actually happened that day when I gave that exam.
I'm sure it's because I got a 45. That was that.
No, it couldn't have been because nobody got lower than a 50 in this data set.
Oh, in that day, yeah.
In this
my
data
first
set.
test, I got a 45, and I was like, oh my gosh.
Now I have to go in there and edit the FERP out. I got a YouTube. Come
Don't listen.
Anyway, the point is that this is what actually happened. And although, Kevin, you drew something close, I don't think most of us would draw this, huh? So, what do you think? As an instructor, and I see this, and I go, okay, what the hell do I do with this, right? So if I can ignore this bar, I like that, right? I like what's remaining. As a matter of fact, I don't usually even see that. Usually in these classes now, I see something along this, where it goes exponentially higher as we get up to. I like that. I like that because it means you guys are kicking butt, it means you're protecting your GPA, it means hopefully it means you're learning. But I get this like horn hand looking thing. How do I deal with it? So one way to do it is not to deal with it. The average was 71, that's a C. Median was 78, that's almost a B. That's it, I'm done. You got what you got. That's one way to deal with it, right? And you could do that if you believed that the 71 was a typical result for this class. But all you gotta do is look at the graph and realize it's not typical at all, right? 71 is in this bar right here. This bar right here. How typical is that? It's the second from the bottom as far as frequency. 78 is in the same bar, right? So how good do I feel as a stat guy about using the average of the median in this distribution? I feel kind of lame, exactly. I feel a little bit lame. So what I ended up doing was, I looked at the exams, and I ended up talking to these students right here. And as it turned out, what happened was roughly half of them were going to drop the course anyway, and for some reason showed up and decided to take the exam. And they tanked their grades. And I'm like, oh! So I can pull you guys out because you're not going to be here anyway. So I blocked those off. This dropped down to here, which was still higher than I wanted it to be. The ones that remained, I just realized they just needed more resources. This is before I videotaped. This is before I posted extra resources. This is before I had everything online. This is kind of what spurred that thought of maybe we should have these extra resources. Either I make myself or we use ones that are already posted. So that's what's beautiful about this. I could have just gone, to 71, boom, let me give you 5 points, get off my back. Or you can look at it and see what it's actually showing you. Kind of neat, huh? Kind of neat. That's what I like about this graph. Not that everybody failed. see how it's bimodal, multimodal. This is going back to what Aaron was saying. This is a multimodal graph. Do I say they have an average of 71? No, I said a third of my class failed and a third of my class got Bs. That's weird. That's weird. Let me go find out why. And I did. And I got some answers. I didn't get all the answers, but I got some of the answers. So my point is, when you have this multimodal kind of setup, don't just blindly accept the average and don't just blindly accept the median, because they might not be giving you any indication of where things actually are. Without making a histogram, I might not have even noticed that. If I simply had all the numbers in a grade book with an average at the bottom, I might not have ever noticed what was going on. That's why it's so important to be critically thinking about this. Please.
For multimodal, does it have to be exactly the same?
No.
Thing, but as a-
No. For this class, treat it, to make life easy for us in this class, I'll only call something bimodal if it's exactly the same, but statisticians don't govern that. They say if this was like at 19 and this was at 20, they call that bimodal. That's a great question. But for in this class, like I said, to make your lives easy, we'll call it if it's exactly the same. It's exactly the most one. Is that fair? Yeah, it's a great question. It's one of those like gut feeling kind of things. There's one last type of data I wanted to deal with before I give you some silly examples to end with. What if you had qualitative data? What if you had qualitative data on the horizontal axis? Like we did on the first day of class with broccoli and carrot and cauliflower and potato and blah 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 blah. If you had to describe the average response with qualitative data, which of the three measures would you use? It's almost a trick question, now that I think about it.
Probably mode.
A vote for mode, second, a third. Who says average? Use the average. You can't, can you?
No.
You can't add a potato to a carrot, right? I mean, the average, you add things and then divide by how many there are. You can't add a cucumber to, so you can't add qualitative data. You also can't order it with a median. You also can't order it. The only thing you can do is put them into categories and see which one has the most, or which two have the most. So you gotta go with mode.
Right. You can't count it because of the average, right?
You can count in a category, but you can't add carrots to broccoli and pretend
Right,
that sum means something. Go ahead, David.
But didn't it become discrete data the other day when we started counting how many people thought of which?
But the number of the vegetables.
Because there was like 8 people thought of carrots. 8
Right,
people
but
thought
the
of-
data isn't the frequency. The data is what's on the horizontal axis, carrot. That itself isn't a discrete data point. You said there were 8 people that said it, but that's like saying these frequencies here are the data. These aren't the data, that's the data
Because
down
you
here.
can't order them in a certain
Right, because think about it, we chose to put carrot first on the graph, didn't we? But why did we do that? Did we have to do that?
Most of them.
No.
We wanted to really exaggerate the fact that so many people said carrot, so we put that first. Could we have easily put carrot in the middle?
Yep.
Right.
Could we have made the results look like a bell curve if we wanted to?
Yep.
We could have, right? But it doesn't make it right or wrong. Could I take 50 on a number line and put it to the right of 70 and be like, I just reinvented mathematics? Yeah, you can, but you're gonna get stoned, right? That's what happened to Hypatia back in ancient Greece, and they took her skin off with shells and burned her at the stake. That wouldn't happen these days. Education isn't that big a deal anymore. But the idea is you can't recreate the number line. But with qualitative data, you can because there's no numbers. It's just words. Good question. Now, a couple fun things to leave with. Wish you a fine weekend. Some of these are kind of obvious, like, yeah, duh, I wouldn't do that, or yeah, duh, I will definitely do that. But it's amazing, even in our own little world, how much I think, this is my personal opinion, you don't have to agree with me. In our own little world, how much of this gets misused? Bend Chamber of Commerce, average annual snowfall in Bend, 33.8 inches. Okay, there we go. So I said, you know what, I'm gonna check that. Because I'm me. I mean, I can't let it go. And I've got data sheets for you guys for next time where you will also check it. There's 100 years worth of snowfall data in Bend, some of which collected by me, some of which collected by the guy before me, who has disappeared. I don't know where he is. He's picking up where he left off. Anyway, we'll get back into that later. I don't know where he went. I don't know where